Hey everyone, Thomas with Houston Paint Protection here with the 2025 Mercedes GLS450 that's going to be receiving our Total Protection Package. The Total Protection Package is a combination of our three primary services, which are going to be paint protection film, ceramic coatings, and ceramic window tint. If you're not familiar with these products and services, please check out some of our other content where we give detailed descriptions of these products and services, because this video is going to be a deep dive in our process in how we accomplish the finished work and results that our customers have come to expect. So we're going to be shooting from 2 points of view, one with the camera that you see on and one from my glasses, so you guys can see in detail all the nitty-gritty of how we do this stuff from beginning to end. This is gonna be a long form video, so if you've been going down the rabbit hole, checking out YouTube, other shops, blogs and forums, and the internet at large for information, and you've come to an impasse, you have all of the details, all of the information, but you're still not sure what this looks like, and if you're wanting to purchase these services, this video is for you. We're going to start off with our thorough prep process, which includes cleaning and decontaminating the exterior of the vehicle. Even on a brand new car, this is very important because the prep that we do on the front end is typically what determines how durable and how clean the installs are on the back end. We've got paint protection film going down on the full front end. That's gonna be bumper, hood, fenders, lights, and mirrors. And then we're also going to be covering some of these trim pieces that are housed in the bumper, along with this kind of bronze chromed grille that they've got up front. And the ceramic coating goes on the full exterior. So the ceramic coating will go over the film. We're gonna coat the wheels, all of the paint, the trim, plastics, rubber, lights, badging, everything. And then we're also gonna do a glass coating on the windshield. So because we are covering everything on this vehicle, that necessitates very thorough prep, which means we're gonna first wash the vehicle, and then we're gonna clay bar it to pull off any kind of stuck-on contamination that the wash doesn't remove. And then we're also going to do some chemical decontamination steps to pull out anything embedded in the paint that the clay can't grab. And at that point, it will be very, very clean. Now, here's where there's a little bit of departure from the paint protection film prep to the ceramic coating prep. So the ceramic coating, if we do the wash and decontamination, it's good to go. We don't need to do anything else in the wash bay to prep it. However, we will pull out our machines and lightly polish the surface of all of the exposed paint to refine it, increase the gloss and clarity, and ultimately just elevate the aesthetic before we lock it in with the ceramic coating. Now, on the front end where the paint protection film is going, we do need to take some additional steps. The paint protection film is meant to be as invisible as possible, so we want to make sure that we have a durable and well hidden install. And what that means is we're going to be wrapping the film underneath the hood, inside the fenders, and other areas on the front end where we can hide those edges. When we cannot wrap, we're going to place the edges directly near the bevels of all of the panels. And what we need to pay attention in order to achieve that is what is going on the front end in regards to residues like oils, greases, tire dressings like on this Mercedes that are very prevalent on new cars, because those are the types of things that can last through a wash and decontamination that will ultimately prevent the film from sticking. It causes comebacks, it causes unsightly issues that lead to replacements or whatever it is. So at this stage in the game, what we actually need to do is prep the panels that are getting PPF in a slightly different way. What we're gonna do is get one of our heavy cleaners that is a degreaser that's meant to take down residues of that nature, and we're gonna clean the full front end with it. So we're gonna get here underneath this fender well and on the back side of the bumper where this dressing tends to sling and get all over the place and prevent us from wrapping even after we clean properly. We're gonna clean all of these recesses and edges, especially this bottom and trailing edge of the fender, because this stuff slings back here, the car gets wet, and it flows into all these crevices and wraps. So we need to address that before we lay the film. Obviously, wheels and tires will get cleaned up. And then a bigger issue with front ends, especially with all of these cracks and crevices, is debris and contamination. So there's a lot of dust and dirt and other things trapped in all of these hidden areas. And when we apply the paint protection film and we're spraying our slip solution, it's gonna get all in there and pull all of that stuff out. So what we're gonna do is clean those areas so all of that stuff doesn't end up underneath the paint protection film install and give us a substandard result. So the way it works is we spray the cleaner all over the front end, we get our fine detail brushes, and we slowly work around all of the recessed areas, behind trim pieces, gaps between panels, all of the grill area down here. And once all of that has been properly cleaned with that heavier cleaner, then we can move on to finishing the remainder of the vehicle. And when we do that with our thorough prep process on the remainder, we end up with a vehicle that's ready for PPF coating and window tint. I did forget to mention that when we do our paint protection film, if we need to remove badges, emblems, small trim pieces, fender flares, things like that, anything that we can easily remove to hide film lines that's not too difficult or too risky, that could lead to anything breaking, we'll go ahead and pull that off to give us a cleaner or more discreet install. In the case of this GLS, there's really nothing to pull off except for the Mercedes emblem up top. We always pull those if we can. That way when we lay the paint protection film down, we don't have to cut around it, causing a film edge here right at the focal point of the car. For vehicles like this that are going to be daily driven or driven a lot, that edge of film will pick up dirt and be very noticeable over time, and it just doesn't look great. So the first thing we're going to do is open this up and just get this emblem out of here, and it's super simple. There's a couple of retaining clips underneath here. Just squeeze them with your finger and push it out, and it's going to come out nice and clean. And we're going to clean all around there too, so when we lay the film in, we don't get debris underneath it. First things first, we need to do our deep clean of the front end that's getting the PPF. We're going to start with our cleaner and the passenger half of the bumper. So we're going to get this all in there so it can penetrate in those deep areas and help loosen everything up. Clean up those edges, remove residues. We'll have a nice, clean, and lasting install. And when we do this, you don't want to just haphazardly brush over the surface of everything. Take your time, be patient with your prep. A lot of people skip this step, which is not good. Make sure you're getting those bristles everywhere they need to be so we don't get any contamination. And it's the finer details here, guys. Look at the gap right here between this plastic grill and the bumper. That's where we want to make sure to get those bristles in there and loosen everything up, because if this bumper piece is very large, if we lay it down, get debris in there and don't see it until it's too late, it could necessitate a redo or just end up with an install that's not as pretty as we would like it to be. So I've got the full front bumper scrubbed down. I'm about to rinse everything out. Just want to point out one key area here, which is the trailing wrapped edge of the bumper. So if possible, we always want to wrap our paint protection film around the trailing edge of the bumper. That way we don't see a film line here. And if there's paint here, we can protect it so it doesn't get peppered up from the tire. This is a very critical spot to hit with the heavier cleaners because all of this tire dressing gets slung right here. So if we don't clean this appropriately, what's going to happen is we're going to spend all this time installing the bumper. When we get to the very end, it's not going to wrap, or it's going to lift later on the customer, necessitating a comeback or a redo. We want to avoid all of this. We don't want to cause any kind of inconvenience. So some patient prep work right here will save us a lot of headaches. All right, so we've got the front end taken care of. We're going to be moving on to the fender and the fender flare. We are going to be wrapping the film on this inside jam area right here. And typically we'll get tire or engine dressing from new vehicles. And as the vehicle is driven and the air heats up, that stuff gets in the air and gets along all of these edges. And I can feel it right now under my gloves. It's very slick. So even though it wasn't applied directly there, it will impact our install. So we need to get that taken care of. We are also going to modify our patterns to wrap right here where it meets the A-pillar. There's a ledge there that we can have it grab onto, but a lot of manufacturers stop painting back here, so the clear is very uneven, which means getting the film to stick can be a challenge. So we want to eliminate as much of that challenge as we can by making sure we clean appropriately back in there in that hidden edge. Trailing edges of fenders. We always wrap the trailing edge. In this case, if you try and use a brush to clean there, the bristles are not going to hug that edge and actually clean it. So we'll be using one of our trash rags over here to spray that heavier cleaner and clean that trailing edge. And then of course, we're gonna do this lower wrapped portion of the fender flare and then this gap between the flare and the fender and this bottom edge here, because this residue is all over this panel and it will give us problems later on down the line. And then all along here. Got our cleaner on our rag, and we'll just get that wrapped edge. Next, I'm going to take on the two mirrors. The mirrors aren't near the ground, the dressing, or any of the areas that make it susceptible to getting those residues that will prevent the film from sticking. However, mirrors often have like these bulbous corners and more complex geometry, which increases the risk for the film lifting or having issues later on down the line. So even though it's not in a high risk area, we're going to go ahead and clean it very well. Just do our due diligence. That way we can remove as much of that risk on the back end as possible. So when we lay the paint protection film down over these hoods, we do what's called bulking. So we're going to take a big piece of film that's unshaped and lay it over the full hood, and then we'll hand cut the perimeter, and we'll take all of the excess film and wrap it underneath here along this edge around the full perimeter of the hood. That way you don't see any film lines and it's as hidden as possible. Now, when we do that, the edges tend to grab pretty hard underneath the hoods, but occasionally all of that oily, greasy residue causes a small lift. And anytime you get a lift on the perimeter of the hood, it pretty much has to be fully redone, because if you trim it, most of the time you're going to be able to see it from the outside. So that's a pretty big risk. It's an expensive piece of film. It's time consuming and expensive to remove it and replace it, and it's very inconvenient for the customer. So we just want to, again, do our due diligence. We're going to use our cleaner, hit the full perimeter, rinse it, and then we'll move on to the rest of the prep on the entire vehicle. As I mentioned, these wraps typically go down easy, but there are some hidden things that kind of make it like walking through a minefield, and here's one of them. So if you guys look really closely right here, we've got cavity wax bleeding out of the back side of this panel. This is a double panel, and so behind it there's cavity wax right behind this little rubber foot. It's all this white stuff. You see how it's moving around with the fluid? And so what ends up happening is we'll glass this whole hood, have the film trimmed, ready to wrap, and then because all of this got wet, this residue flows up underneath the film and prevents us from wrapping it, and once it hits the adhesive, it's ruined. So in that case, we have to start all over on square one, losing all of that time and money, or if it happens to go down long enough for the customer to not see it, it's eventually going to lift and come back. So take my experience and don't run into the same traps I do. Be very diligent about cleaning these panels and these hidden wrap areas. This is also a big issue with doors. So if you're doing like full car PPF and having to wrap your lower or trailing edges of doors, sometimes you get a lot of cavity wax bleeding out that ends up causing a lot of headaches on the installation or comeback side. So a little bit of patience and attention to detail will help prevent all of that. Okay, so now that we've done the heavy cleaning for the PPF, we're going to move on to the wheels, tires, and fender wells. And when we do this for our packages, we want to be sure to clean everything in this area because we're looking for a total elevated look. So we don't want to send these cars out with dirty wheel wells, dirty barrels on the inside of the wheels, especially stuff like this where it's very obvious and it's not well hidden. So we want to make sure we just take our time to prep this stuff properly so it looks nice, crisp, and clean on the back end. We're going to take our heavy-duty cleaner and hit the fender wells, the barrels, all the areas around the lug bolts, faces of the wheel, and then the tire itself. We'll just start with the driver front, work our way around the vehicle, and then after that we'll start the wash and decon. One thing I like to do with tires that come in with a lot of tire dressing, because these dealers tend to use cheaper products and silicone-based stuff, it has a lot of staying power on these tires. So what ends up happening is if we don't remove it completely, we put our dressing on there, it doesn't grab, it ends up slinging down the side of the car, and so you have a vehicle that just received a lot of high ticket services that's supposed to be looking really nice, and after like a day you see splatter going down the side. So in order to prevent that and give our product a better chance to hold, we just want to do one more iteration of cleaning on this tire and make sure we get all of that silicone out of there. You can even see that after the clean, the water behavior is different on the surface of the tire. That's because we hadn't fully removed the dressing, but now it's acting a lot more natural. So as I wash this vehicle, I can feel a lot of grit underneath the mitt, and it was fairly clean when it came in. So that tells me it's not just loose dirt and debris, it's contamination that's stuck on the paint. And I can still feel it when I move my hand across the paint. So that tells me that you know, we're gonna have to do a really good job clay barring to pull off all that contamination that's still stuck on. Okay, so we're working our way through the clay bar, and this is where we're taking off all of the stubborn contamination that doesn't come off with just the normal wash. And we want to do all the paint, glass, glossy trim, all that good stuff. And then after this, we'll do one more round of decon, and then everything will be clean. And this is extra important on the front end of the car where the paint protection film goes, because we don't want any of this contamination to be trapped and seen under the film after we do our install. And when we do this, we're just going along and claying until the surface feels smooth underneath the mitt. That's how we know that we've taken everything off. Final step of decon is going to be our chemical decon. So this is where we go through with any iron and ferrous contamination removers, mineral and scale deposit removers, essentially anything that the wash and clay didn't get. And you know, these German cars tend to throw a lot of dust, so you get a lot of iron contamination across the surface. And what ends up happening is it presents itself as little black or orange specks that you can see underneath the paint protection film or on the rest of the body whenever you're coating. So we want to make sure to get rid of all of that, and that is what this process does for us. So we're going to spray this over the full vehicle, give it time to dwell, and we should be able to see it working. So we've been letting our chemical decon sit for a little while, and you can definitely see the contamination starting to come out here. Hopefully the camera will be able to focus on it. It's all this purple stuff that's being lifted here. So usually really prevalent on the vertical facing surfaces, roofs, hoods, and then also on the rear of the vehicle where all of the stuff gets kicked up on the back. So you can see here on the rear quarter, this isn't anywhere near the ground, but because there's so much kickback over here, it gets really heavy buildup of iron. You can also see it here in this corner, along the back bumper. So we'll go ahead and rinse everything off. It's been dwelling for several minutes, and then we'll cut the patterns for the car and get started on the installation of the paint protection film. So we've got the GLS in the back of the shop, and we are ready to start the paint protection film. We're going to start with the hood first, and as I mentioned before, we're going to be bulking the hood. So that means we're going to get a big piece of film and lay it over the hood that's not shaped. We're going to stretch it, and squeegee it down the way we need it to be, and then we'll trim all of the edges and wrap the edges underneath so you can't see it on there at all. For the remainder of the install, we're going to be using computer patterns, and we're going to start with pre-made patterns and then modify them to give us the best possible coverage and also the most discreet install. So we'll go through and extend coverage, add wraps so we can wrap into jam areas and things like that, and also resize pieces to make sure they fit appropriately so we don't have to do too much hand trimming on the vehicle. So a little bit of patience in our upfront approach will really reduce the risk of the install and typically also leads to a lot better durability. So I've got the film on the table and ready to go for the install. I need to do our final step of prep, which is what we call solvent prepping. Solvent prepping is the final step of prep before PPF. Almost all installers do some version of this, whether it's with different concentrations of isopropyl alcohol, mineral spirits, acetone, any other types of solvents that are safe to use on paint briefly. They will use something like that to strip it of whatever remaining residues are present so the film can seat properly. We do our heavier all-purpose cleaner on all of this stuff to kill off like greases and oils, because in our experience, solvent prepping does not clean those types of residues as well. So we do double the work, but again, it ensures a better install long term. So we're going to use some alcohol here. It will get anything remaining off, and then it will be nice and clean and tacky, so when we wrap our edges, they grab and stay there for a long time. Got my piece of paint protection film here on the table. I've already cleaned this a couple of times, but I'm just going to do it one final time so you guys can see. The reason why we're cleaning the surface of the film, because this isn't the part that's going to stick. The reason we're cleaning the surface is because we have to manipulate this a lot with our hands, and there's going to be slip solution and fluid flowing all over this, and we need it to be clean. That way, when we're messing around with it, it doesn't backflow underneath the film with, contamination, lint from the air, or other contamination from packing. So we always want to clean the top first before we do what's called floating, which is where I'm going to pick up the film from the sticky side, spray our slip solution, and get ready to put it on the vehicle. So I've got the film floated over here. We're going to do one more round of cleaning on the hood to make sure there's no lint or any debris from the air, because it has been sitting for a few minutes. So I'm just going to use a little clay scrubber here to loosen anything up on the surface one more time. And then instead of squeegeeing this down, like a lot of people prefer to do, we're going to use a smooth stream of water to push everything off the hood. I found it's a lot more thorough in removing everything. So that's how we clean these panels off. And we're going to repeat this process on every panel that we do for the full front. So I'm only going to explain it once, and then the rest will just be showing the install. All right, so the hood is ready to go. Final rinse, and then we'll throw the film on. And we want to do this part as quickly as possible to reduce the amount of time that a clean hood is sitting facing up to the open air. So this thing is good to go. We'll throw the film on top. We got the piece on the hood, and as you can see, there's a lot of excess tension here going around the perimeter. The way we get rid of that to let it lay flat so we can glass the hood is we need to stretch the film and have it form to the contour of the shape. So we are going to tack our film in the back, which really means just make it stick in place, stretch the film forward to even all of this out, and then we'll go through and squeegee everything down. So after the initial stretch, you can see all the fingers have laid down flat around the outside. We'll just give a gentle tug here, be able to glass everything down, and the hood will be done. With the hood laid down, we need to move on to the next steps, which are going to be trimming out where the emblem goes. So we're going to trim out and leave enough material to wrap inside, so when we put the emblem back on top, it covers the edge. So we'll trim it, rinse out all of the slip solution, and then lay it down and let that dry, and then replace the emblem. And then we need to trim all of the excess film around the perimeter and get it to about 1/4 of an inch in length, just enough for it to wrap around and grab on the other side and be hidden. So I'm going to go through now and trim everything, and then we'll use our tack solution to rinse out all of the slip, let it air dry for about 15 minutes, and then we'll start wrapping and complete the hood. You can see here where we extended our pattern to allow us to wrap. We've got the fender down, and we've got all of our wrapped edges that we need to set. So what I'm going to do, same thing as the hood, tack solution, flush out all the edges, wrap everything, and we'll do any kind of final trimming on the back end to make sure we have a nice, clean, and discreet look. But everything fit, went down well, looks like glass. So we've got all of the paint protection film installed on the Mercedes. We're not quite done with it yet though. So we need to do 3 things. We need to do a final pass for quality checks and any final trimming on the perimeter of the pieces, make sure the edges are set properly and that they're clean. We also need to do reassembly, which for this vehicle is very minor. It's just gonna be the Mercedes emblem on the front and the A-pillar trim that we pulled off here on the sides. and then we need to do a final pass with our heat gun. This is something we do for all of our paint protection film installations. We're gonna take our heat gun and go along all of the edges of each and every piece to make sure that they're locked in so we have a nice durable install. Before we do that though, we're ready to jump into the ceramic coating prep. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, most of the prep for the ceramic coating is the same as the paint protection film, but there's one extra step, and that's what we're about to do. So we need to get out our machines and lightly polish the surface of all of the remaining exposed paint and gloss trim so we can elevate the aesthetic, make it glossier than it was when it was new, and also to prime the surface to accept the coating so we get the aesthetics and durability that our customers are looking for. Our approach to polishing new vehicles is a fairly conservative one. In general, most of the vehicles that we work on come straight from dealerships or have very few miles because they were just purchased. As a result of that, they're showing up in good condition, the paint isn't hammered, and so it doesn't really need a very aggressive paint correction or several steps of heavy polishing or anything like that. So the way we deal with new vehicles is we give them a very light polish, just enough to refine the surface, get it as glossy as possible, prime it for that coating so we can see the durability and aesthetics we want, but it's also an approach that allows us to maintain the integrity of the clear without getting too crazy. So on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being very aggressive, we're going to be anywhere from a 1 to a 4, so on the lighter side of things, depending on the actual condition of the vehicle and how easy or difficult the paint is to work with. In this case, this dark gray metallic paint from Mercedes is pretty easy to deal with. So we're going to be cutting around like a 2, so very light, and we're going to repeat that process across all of the paint and gloss trim. Once we've finished up with that, we'll be ready to move on to the final steps before we coat the vehicle. As I mentioned, since they show up in great condition, we don't necessarily want to do full corrections, heavy cutting on all of these new cars. At the same time, we don't want to go with no correction or no polishing at all, because in our experience, after doing thousands of these installs across many years, we have seen that even the lightest bit of polishing and refinement on this paintwork will give you a much better aesthetic, better slickness, and a much more durable install. So we want to just keep it right there in the middle, just enough to make it better, but not too much where we're doing damage. We've just completed the paint polishing on the remaining portion of the GLS, and it is ready for the ceramic coating. However, this vehicle is going to receive ceramic tint on all of the side and back windows and the windshield, and tint is a wet install, which means they're going to be spraying water inside and outside the car. We don't want that getting on a fresh ceramic coating, so what we're going to do is pause on the exterior here, and we're going to run the ceramic window tint installation, and then on the back side of that, we'll do our final cleaning for the ceramic coating. And that step is what we call paint prep or solvent prepping. That's where we're going to use a solvent-based product like this one here, and we're going to spray it over the full exterior, and we're gonna wipe it away. And this is gonna lift any residue from the tint slip solution, polishing oils, anything left over from the paint protection film installation. This is going to catch all of it, and then we'll do a final wipe with a dry towel to remove any streaking, and then it's going to be ready for the coating. Ceramic window tint is a window film that is specifically made to block a lot of the incoming heat, ultraviolet and infrared. So this film can perform across all shades on the spectrum, so you can have it be a clear film for the windshield all the way down to 5% limo, and you're still going to feel the same effects. So it's going to block all of that incoming heat, protect your interior, and allow you to drive in a lot more comfort. And these are very desirable features of this product here in Houston, Texas, obviously because we get a lot of intense sun and high heat in the summer. On this particular car, we're going to be doing a 70%, so basically clear, film for the windshield, That way it doesn't affect any of the visibility driving at nighttime or during the day. And you also cannot tell that it's there. And then we're going to be doing a 15% window tint on the front two windows to make them dark enough for a lot of privacy, but not too dark where it's a complete blackout. And then we're gonna do 55 on all of the rear glass, that's privacy glass from the factory, to bring that down to around 10%. So he's gonna have a good amount of privacy while still being able to maintain his clarity and visibility at nighttime. So we're gonna go ahead and jump into the window tint install. And when we run our installs, we do protect the full interior. We like to cover the dash, the seats, door cards, any of the vinyls, plastics, leathers, screens. We do soak ropes in all of the recessed areas so you don't get water ingress. Like I mentioned, tint is a wet install and they're going to be spraying all over the glass. So we want to just be patient and take the right steps to protect the interior, and also make sure we don't have any problems coming later on down the line from any water getting in electronics or other hardware that's critical for the vehicle's function. I got my head pointed in the right direction. We are nearly finished with the GLS. We have completed the full front paint protection film install. We have done the ceramic window tint on all of the side and back glass, and also the clear tint for the windshield. And the vehicle has been polished and panel prepped, so it's ready for the icing on the cake, which is the ceramic coating. Ceramic coatings get applied to the full exterior of the vehicle. We cover the paint protection film, the wheels, and all of the trim, plastics, and badging. That way they don't fade or age over time. We also do a glass coating for the windshield. Ceramic coatings are excellent solutions to help keep your vehicle looking new for a long period of time, protect it from the elements, and enhance its aesthetics by increasing the gloss. We have already prepped the GLS, so we're gonna go ahead and move on to the install. And once we have installed the coating on the full exterior, we'll let it sit overnight, and then it will be ready for pickup the following day.